Hi, everybody. This is Eve Harrow on Rejuvenation for the Land of Israel Network. Today is June 25th, 2017. Wow, I can't believe June is almost over already. The first day of Tammuz, 5777. So Chodesh Tov to everyone. It's a beautiful new Jewish month. Hope everybody has been great. I've been super busy guiding around Israel and meetings and just all kinds of wonderful things, which is great. Which is great. I've been all over the country, from the Golan Heights to the Metula, the border with Lebanon, of course, Jerusalem, all the time Jerusalem, the beaches in Tel Aviv, the beautiful coast, as Israel settles into what looks like it's going to be a hot summer. A lot of tourists here, a lot of people on the road. And that's wonderful, a little crowded. So sometimes you have to gnash your teeth, because that's the other side of it, right? Sitting in traffic or trying to get people through the city of David when there's a lot of other people there. But I remember the days when things were open and empty, and it was much easier to guide then, but also really sad. So thank God that people are coming to Israel, enjoying Israel, people of all stripes. I see a lot of people here now from the Far East, enjoying the country, learning about the country, always fascinated to hear the different languages being spoken, and see people, trying to understand why this little piece of land is so much in the headlines. Like, what is the fascination? Fascination / obsession. Obsessions are usually not good. Knowing in my own personal life, people who have struggled with, like OCD and different issues where things go into obsession in not such a healthy way. And that's what I think sometimes happens here when it comes to Israel and the world, where, especially, let's say, like the UN Security Council or other newspapers who cannot seem to keep a negative article about this country off their front page for even a day. So that's already the unhealthy part of it, the obsession part of it. But the fascination part of it, I totally understand how such a small country is so packed with history and with meaning for so many, and not just with history, but with the future and the excitement and going to visit different high-tech and entrepreneurial places, also with people, and just the ideas and the creativity here is just absolutely mind-blowing. So it's been a very interesting couple of weeks. I'm heading now into a week with the JWRP, the Jewish Women's Renaissance Project. I've spoken about them before. I'm going to be doing 2 groups with them in end of June, at the end of July as well, in a few weeks, where women, for those of you who don't remember or weren't listening or whatever, aren't hanging on my every word. That's kind of like a birthright for moms, bringing Jewish women here who would like to get more connected to their Judaism and bring it back to their home. Because as we all know, moms are the key. The women are the key. And so real privilege to be able to guide those women. Also very challenging. The way they set it up is that they're 200 women and 4 guides, and we bounce from bus to bus. So every day is a different 50 women. Makes it a little difficult to get to know anybody beyond a superficial level to some degree. But on the other hand, we get to be in contact with more women during the course of the week. So usually I am with some really amazing tour guides, which also makes it a lot of fun. And getting to see the country, but also watching these women wake up to some part of their lives and of their identity that they weren't even aware of before. In this world where I think feminism is taking on meanings that I'm not really sure feminism was supposed to be, in terms of, let's say, doing the same job. I mean, obviously, I think that a woman who's doing the same job as a man should get paid the same. I don't even think that should be an issue, really. Anything different is just totally not right. But to me, it seems like a lot of feminists these days are kind of male wannabes and trying to do things that, at least in Judaism, are really the purview of the men. And it doesn't do it for me. I guess if it does it for them, that's fine. It doesn't do it for me. But I think it's kind of sad because there is such a great role that women play in Judaism, such an important role that is no less important, and I will even venture out to say in many degrees more important than the role that men play, especially when it comes to the home, to being more of an influence on the children if we're around more, if we can be around more, And so a lot of these women that are coming here, if not all, are mothers or are soon to be mothers or want to be mothers, and understanding Judaism and the strength of the family and the strength of the Torah is all about family. So we've talked about that before, and that definitely holds. But on a day-to-day level, the feminine side of perhaps a little more, I don't know if you could say instinctual, but a little less black and white, at least for myself and what I see happening with the people around me, a little more spiritual, or maybe a lot more spiritual, at least when it comes to me, and pulling something out that is not necessarily like on the surface. And I think that has been, at least for me, a very big part of my mothering, and a very, I think, big important part of Judaism as well. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to these women understanding, hopefully understanding that Judaism, as it's portrayed so often in the Western world as being anti-woman and anti-feminist, is really, that's not what Judaism is. And it's an understanding of how central the role of women is in Judaism in a way that may not fit in with whatever Western ideas are right now. But as with everything, there needs to be a balance. I, for example, am all for the women going into the IDF, into the Israel Defense Forces, but I do think that there's places where the women don't belong. For example, in a tank, in very closed quarters with men. I think, forgetting even the intimacy with the men, I think that women need their privacy at times, and you're not going to get that in those cramped kind of quarters with men. And they can't have all women's tank units because the women physically are not strong enough to be able to load some of the things that they have to do. So I think that, even when it comes to that, when it comes to IDF, there's certain, you can say yes, but that's okay. It's okay to say for these areas, fine, but then there's certain things, no. People don't like to be told no in any form, but sometimes I think it's necessary because there is a bigger picture. It was just, I was thinking about this also because I was reading an article about Ayaan Ali Hirsi, amazing woman who has come out for years against, believe she's from the Sudan. I read her book a long time ago, but she and another woman were in the Senate. They had been asked to come and discuss, radical Islam, and the Democratic panel that was doing the questioning, just totally ignored them, probably because they were going to say things that maybe these senators didn't want to hear. But, that is a way of putting down feminists. There seems to be this, everybody's rah-rah feminist, except when it comes to the terrible things that happen in the Islamic world with women. And then it's a big no, you can't talk about that. So what is that? Is that fear of retribution if you say anything against Islam? Or is that just total hypocrisy? So people can be completely critical of Israel, which I happen to find hilarious, really, when it comes, I think every feminist should be ecstatic about Israel. It's the only place in the Middle East where women can really, pretty much do whatever they want, and heads of the Supreme Court and the Israel Bank and, in all different spheres. And I just mentioned the army, and there's certainly so many more. Yet when it comes to, to Muslim, no, we can't talk about genital mutilation, and we can't talk about any of these things and honor killings in the Muslim world against women. And so that hypocrisy, you can hear that word a lot from me, and you have, is really, 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 really bothers me. All right. So if you're going to be a feminist, take it all the way. Be critical of every society that you don't think is treating its women the way it should. But then there's this hands-off attitude just about one. Okay. So nobody's saying that Islam is a terrible religion. Not at all. I know Muslims and I understand the religion. I understand the beauty of the religion and the traction of the religion. But the one that's out there right now, the element of radical Islam that is out there right now, that wants to take over the world, that wants everyone living on Sharia law, that is doing terrible things to its women, that is what must be criticized, because the people that suffer the most from that are the good Muslims themselves. All right. And so there's this, these terrible trends that I see of very selective criticism. And of course, Israel comes in for more than its share when it comes to that. So, like reading, I didn't read the book, nor am I going to. Michael Chabon and Ayelet Waldman, very critical book about Israel and the West Bank. And, they brought some authors here, and they did their, let's, go and look at the West Bank, and taking a very, very selective view of what's happening here in Israel. And then, of course, having to come out with a book that is totally critical of Israel and the occupation, which, I guess if you want to be trendy, go ahead and be trendy. Of course, as Judy Maltz wrote in a very interesting article, their older children didn't come with them because their older children hate Israel. Well, what do you think is going to happen when all you speak about are negative things about Israel? And then you've got to wonder, and this is just segueing into something else, the Pew report, the devastating report that came out just in the last few days about American Jewry, about the Jewry of, I guess, North America, and how where they thought for a long time that the reason the numbers were dropping, and there's been a desperation to say that the numbers are not dropping, the numbers are dropping, and outside of the Orthodox world, and that the reason for that is because of intermarriage. And what it turns out is that American Jews, are simply not having children, following the trend of Europeans and of others, getting married later and just not having children. And that is going to completely, at some point within the next couple generations, devastate American Jewry. So say what you will about the Orthodox lifestyle, and that it's too restrictive and this and that, and things that I've been hearing from conservative and Reform Jews for many, many years. But the only way, and this is a discussion that I have with my own children and people here in Israel, where also there's a drop-off in keeping mitzvot, in being as traditional, and keeping Shabbat in a way that makes it special, and keeping the laws of kosher. In Israel, it's a little more complicated because you can be Jewish on your everyday level without necessarily keeping all the mitzvot, because you're living in a Jewish country. In one hand, it's good. And on the other hand, I think it's not good, because the Torah, it was still given to us for a reason. And the laws of the Torah, we understand a lot of them. We think we understand a lot of them. And a lot of them are beyond our understanding. A lot of them still need to be kept, even if we don't understand. We don't have to have that hubris, okay, that we know everything. There's certain things that we understand now that the Torah put into play thousands of years ago, that now we understand why they make sense. And that things that should be kept on, and not just for tradition, not just because our parents did it, but because there are deeper levels of meaning to things that in our very limited capacity as human beings, we don't understand. I was guiding a couple of weeks ago, and I happened to be, I was in the old city, and we were talking about how the massive stones of the temple got moved over to that area, and they had oxen probably that were bringing them in. And I just happened to mention that it says in the Bible that you should not have different types of animals together, that it's cruel to animals. And the people that I were with were shocked. They said, really? The Bible talks about that, about cruelty to animals? It's for people who didn't, weren't that steeped in Torah knowledge. And I said, yes. The Bible is full of wisdom, not just for people, but for how to run the world in a decent way, how to be kind also to animals, if you've ever seen two animals hitched together, that one is much stronger than the other, it's absolute torture on the smaller animal. And so there's so much wisdom that was not appreciated in the ancient world, was done differently in the ancient world, and that's why the Torah had to be given in order to change a lot of this. And so, we need to sometimes, I think, take a step back and say, I'm going to do it even if I don't understand why I'm doing it, because there is a bigger picture here. And so, to see that Jews in a time where it's easy to be Jewish in most parts of the Western world, where you can find kosher food, where you have a synagogue nearby, where you have co-religionists, where you can give your kids Jewish education, even though it's way too expensive. And that's, I think, also part of the problem that has to be dealt with. Maybe people aren't having Jewish children because they do the math and they say, well, if I want to raise a Jewish child, it's going to cost me this much to get them, to college or whatever in a Jewish way. And that's already a long time that has been discussed, that Jewish education should in some way be subsidized. And here in Israel, one of the advantages, of course, of living in Israel is that your kids can get a Jewish education by going to PS 101. Because that's the education that they're getting here in Israel. So there's a lot of things that were wonderful for me in the last couple of weeks, a lot of things that were very upsetting for me in the last couple of weeks. This report definitely, and I'm going to be trying and getting someone on here within the next few weeks to talk about that more extensively, because I think that maybe it's not too late. It might be 10 to 12, but it's not 12 yet. And maybe there's still something we can do. But the horror, one of the places that I've been taking people, of course, is Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. I'll be going there also with the Jewish Women's Renaissance Project during the course of my guiding them. And you see what happens when people actively try and kill Jews. But what's so tragic and no less decimating to the numbers of Jews is the Jews that just take themselves out of their own volition, just don't care enough, aren't that interested. And, again, I'm someone who uses the word Holocaust to refer to the Holocaust and just doesn't throw it around for any time that there is something terrible that happens. But Jews taking themselves out of Judaism, so many that their children or grandchildren will not be Jewish, is just as decimating to the Jewish people as, physically. The lines being ended and just so sad. So I don't have a lot of time this morning. Got a very busy day ahead of me. I have been asked though by people to say where I'm going to be guiding this summer if you want to catch up to me. So I will be running some buses for One Israel Fund, in the summer on the 4th of July, which is not that far away, the 4th of July, heading out to Ashkelon, which I know is not in Judea and Samaria, which is usually where I guide One Israel Fund buses. The goal of the organization, of course, is to be involved with the communities in Judea and Samaria. But we're going to go and check in what's happened to the people from Gush Katif, the people from Gaza, the Jews from Gaza, who were making Gaza bloom. Oh, yes, even the general Navon, who was in charge of taking the Jews out of Gaza, has said now that it was a mistake. Really, you think? Huh. So 12 years ago, Gaza is made Judenrein, free of its Jews, and just going to want to go check on my friends and the people who used to live there and have beautiful lives and hot houses and export cherry tomatoes and geraniums. Still some of them not in their permanent homes 12 years on. So we're going to be going down to Nitzan, to the Heritage Center for Gush Katif, checking also into getting a private tour of Barzilai Hospital, the hospital on Ashkelon, Israel's southernmost city, that's now fortifying itself in case Hamas might decide to burst out of Gaza in a negative fashion towards Israel, shall we say, visiting some former Gush Katif people in their home and visiting one of the moshavim, one of the communities right around Gaza, and seeing what they're up to. So that's July 4th, July 16th, an artist day in and around Shiloh. So glass blowers, visiting a glass blower and a calligrapher and someone who works with wood and with pottery, and just seeing the creativity and the beauty of the area around Shiloh and the art that comes out of that area. I've run artist tours before and people have loved them, so I decided to do another one. That's going to be July 16th. August 7th, going up with IDF escort to Mount Eval, to the site of Joshua's altar, way up in the northern part of the Shomron of Samaria. Then going to have a personal visit with Menorah Chazani, who used to live in Chomesh, one of the 4 communities in the northern Shomron that were also destroyed as part of that horrible expulsion plan of 2005. And she has made a film about her father, Benny Katzover, and others in Gush Emunim, the original core of activists who helped to resettle the Shomron with its Jews after the 1967 war. And so we're going to be talking to her in her home a little bit about the film. I've known her for a long time. She's really amazing. And then jumping over to Kidumim, with one of the towns also in the northern Shomron. And then August 30th, my annual wine tour, where we'll reel from winery to winery in Binyamin and in Samaria. And that is a lot of fun. But in the interim, I'm going to be in Aspen. I can't imagine that too many of you listening are in that area. But if you are at the end of July, I think it's July 25th, Tuesday, July 25th. I'm going to be in Aspen. I'm being brought to Aspen along with Itamar Marcus, who does a great job with the Palestinian Media Watch. And there's going to be an evening there. I believe it's in the Chabad House, but it's open to everybody, Jews, Christians, whoever's around, about Israel, about what's going on here. And very excited to be going there. I've never been to Aspen. And so I'm very excited to be bringing the news from Israel to a part of the world that I have not been. So as you can see, I've got a busy summer, and that is only the part of it. So I'm off to do lots of things today and get my week going. So Chodesh Tov to everyone. I want to thank once again Ben and Tabitha and everybody at the Land of Israel Network. You can always write to me, Eve at thelandofisrael.com, and I promise to answer. I love getting mail from listeners, and maybe I'll have a little corner where I read some letters without using people's names, just so you can see what other people are thinking of. And I will be back next week, God willing. So have a wonderful week, a wonderful beginning of the month of Tammuz. This is Eve Harrow on Rejuvenation for the Land of Israel Network. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care and goodbye for now.
Who are we as a people? Who are we as a nation? What does it mean to be a Jew in the land of Israel, as a Jew in Judea? What is our message to the world? We're finally back in our land, and we get to ask these questions.
Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to make Judea and Samaria an issue for the entire world, to know that the Jews have a place in the world.
Israel Inspired with Aryeh Bromwitz and Jeremy Gimpel on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.